Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Arden, and welcome to Comic Island.
Hello and welcome to Comic Island.
And this is Dylan, my friend, who's just going to be joining us this evening. Dylan is not joining the channel; he's just here as a special guest.
I was just here to set up a video camera.
Yeah, he's a roadie,
Temporary roadie.
temporary, unpaid volunteer roadie.
It's a terrible internship. I don't recommend it.
Yeah. We also don't give college credit. Just a piece of paper with like "good job" written on it.
I'm
in
doing this
crayon.
for community service hours.
Community service hours after the incident.
The incident. We'll leave it at that.
The court mandated Comic Island YouTube.
The judge was a bit harsh, in my opinion.
And very eccentric with his punishment. It's like you have to work on a YouTube channel.
Work on a YouTube channel for free for community service. They somehow think that you're doing something to give back to the community here. So
yeah, once.
One time. Enough
One
people.
time.
Enough people will see it that my impact is made.
Yeah. Well, not ever. You were Captain America in the.
Don't reveal my secret identity.
Oh, okay, never mind.
We're screwed now.
All right. Well, today,
We're gonna have to move.
Yeah, we're gonna move. And that's why. And so, anyways, today we're gonna. Well, we had a big movie premiere this weekend, whatever you want to call it, with the Fantastic Four.
And everybody saw it.
Everybody saw it. Neither of us have seen it, but that's not the point of today's video because it got me.
Neither has
thinking.
the cast, from what we hear.
Yeah, and that wouldn't surprise me. But I have seen a lot of reviews, and actually, like, kind of went out of my way to watch it because it's kind of like Pixels or any other. Like, what else was bad that came out this summer? There was another really good stinker, aside from like Terminator and Jurassic Park.
I was going to say, you could name a lot of films that came out this summer for that list.
Yeah, so I guess quite a few. But I had a lot of people talking about how the recurring theme I get is like, oh, like the Fantastic Four is a dead idea. You can't make them into a movie. So what I thought we'd do is talk about, as comic book fans, what we'd like to see in a Fantastic Four movie.
Excellent idea.
Because I disagree with that sentiment. I don't know about you, but like the argument I've been hearing is like, oh, like the Fantastic Four are old. They're in the 70s. They're too campy. Like they wouldn't work in any sort of movie. And I think that's a really weird statement to make. Be like saying,
I agree. Yeah.
Be like saying, well, like people said that about Game of Thrones, and that's sort of true.
Seems to be working well though for them.
Yeah, and like I don't know how a movie would be for Game of Thrones, but it could easily, like the show, I think is a good indication that you can adapt pretty complex things.
Absolutely.
And not that the Fantastic Four is the same. If anything, it's in the opposite direction.
Yeah, I think it's a little slimmer than Game of Thrones.
But my point being, it's a very broad statement to make that you can't turn an idea into a movie. Because there's comedies, there's all these things. Like, it'd be saying there's Shakespearean plays you can't adapt.
Absolutely.
When, like, you have, you know, Hamlet, like,
absolutely,
as a play, or even as Star Wars. Like, you can be pretty liberal with that.
Absolutely. You can adapt anything into a movie. How true it stays to the original material, you know, is flexible, but...
Yeah. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about.
Absolutely.
Like, well, let's start with what we think of the Fantastic Four before we get into like what we think would make a good movie. So, would you consider yourself a Fantastic Four fan?
I wouldn't consider myself a big Fantastic Four fan.
Okay.
I definitely like the Fantastic Four and I appreciate the Fantastic Four, but I generally enjoy them in the larger crossover sense. The larger, here's Reed Richards, he's part of your New Avengers Illuminati type group.
Yeah.
I like him in that role. I like classic Fantastic Four, but I can't say I've read a lot of new Fantastic Four. I find a lot of it, and you know, my experience with comics, I haven't read in about a year or so. I haven't read, you know, the newest plot arcs, but I find a lot of the time it does get in a very non-pick up and play kind of friendly way where there's a lot of negative zone, there's a lot of the fact that I can't even say is probably not a great is probably a testament to it, but you know, other dimensions, parallel worlds, other planets, things like that kind of hurt your brain. And I've never been a fan of, and this goes for not just the Fantastic Four, but Doctor Who and other things like that, of the travel through time. Look, we're here with Julius Caesar. We're here with William Shakespeare.
Yeah.
I've never been a big fan of that campiness, so for me that's always been a big turnoff with the Fantastic Four.
Okay, and because they've done that stuff as recently as like a year ago.
Absolutely, yeah.
I have that one comic sitting around where it's like them and Julius Caesar like standing around.
Yeah, why I referenced that specifically. Yeah.
And in that story, actually, I kind of figured I was specifically in that story, Julius Caesar's like an alien, and it's this whole other thing, and he ends up like escaping with them and stuff.
Of course. Now, was that part of Marvel canon and continuity?
I think so.
That Julius Caesar was an alien.
I think he like took his place or something like that. I haven't read it since it was pinned up on that wall and is in a basement somewhere now.
Yeah.
But I would agree with most of that. I think I'm a little familiar with you over that. I don't think you've read Ultimate Fantastic Four.
I read the first couple plot arcs.
Oh, okay, so you've actually probably read as much as I have.
Yeah,
I haven't
about
read the
there.
whole thing. That's what this movie was pretty heavily based on. I saw it in the trailers. There's like a lot of scenes with Reed's dad, and it looks like he's the same pseudo-abusive, like he's not really expressing himself.
Which can play well for movies. Unfortunately, I think it's, I guess, kind of similar to what I said to you about Ant-Man. I feel like it's, 4 or 5 years too late for that type of film now. We've seen it done to death with Spider-Man, with X-Men, with Captain America, Iron Man.
Yeah.
You name it. Every superhero movie so far has been like that. The past few years we're starting to get into Avengers building up to something, the plot, the Dark Knight pick up and go kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
which is probably a big part of it as well.
Absolutely. So I feel like it's harder to interest people as well with that type of film these days because it's just so cliche, been there, seen that.
Yeah, which is probably why it's having a lot of trouble at the box office and stuff. I still think I was giving this movie a lot of benefit of the doubt.
I remember this, yes.
And like we had talked about the news, or like the news of this, that they're all going to be younger, and it was like, well, okay, like maybe that could work. And I kept trying to be like, it wasn't even to make excuses. It was just the mantra I have of like, let's not jump out of the gate. Even when they said that Doom was a blogger, I was at least like, they could do something.
That's where I started to worry.
And from what I hear, it's not like that's not even really like the best way to think about him, as he's not in the story at all. He gets I'll spoil it for you because I'm
not gonna see it.
And same thing with you guys. I assume if you're watching this, you probably don't care. But
exit now if you care about spoilers.
Yeah, for the newest Fantastic Four movie. But the idea is they do that portal thing like they did in Ultimate Fantastic Four, where they created like that's what gave them powers.
Right,
portal device,
and not outer space.
And in this one, they actually do go to another planet though. Okay. And then like they each get exposed to something that has something to do with their powers. So like Ben Grimm gets hit by rocks.
I
assume the Human Torch like explodes in fire and all this stuff. And Doom gets left behind on that planet.
And Mr. Fantastic goes to a vending machine where they've got all those slappy hand things.
Okay. Or like I thought you were gonna say you had to like wiggle through the vending machine to get stuff.
Oh,
maybe. But yeah, Doom gets left behind.
And Sue Storm plays the generic role of women in comic books and is invisible.
Yes. It's a very useful metaphor. So Doom gets left behind on this planet. So he's gone for a year in the story, and then he comes back and he's all crazy because he's been there for a year, mutated and has like powers he doesn't have in the comics. Which again, okay,
you can take some liberties,
but you need to have a point to it,
of course.
And then he just wants to kill everyone, and that's it.
And I feel like Doctor Doom is such a terrible word to describe him, I guess, but such a beautiful character in the sense of he's not evil. He's just, his interests are not your interests. You know what I mean? He wants to take over the world, and that's great if you live in Latveria. If you live somewhere else,
Yeah, and I've always loved that it's a staple of the comics. Like, he's taking over the world in various situations, including in canon. And he's not a bad ruler. Like
he seems to do better than many.
Yeah, the idea is he's competent. He's just very egotistical and not a. I was like, he's kind of a villain. Like, he's not.
He's Doctor. Your name can't be Doctor Doom, and you're not considered a villain.
Yeah, but he's not exactly like the Joker either. He's very
he's not. He's not a homicidal maniac. He's very intelligent, and that's part of the beauty of Doctor Doom is he's got that Tony Stark, but he's also, and the movies always seem to fear doing this, but the magic. You know what I mean? They don't want to do the fact that, hey, not only is this guy super smart and can invent things, but there's also he's got powers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Which
And
is-
that's where he really becomes a threat to the Fantastic Four
Yeah,
because he
and-
can fight them. You know,
Oh, for sure.
in
And that sort of
one-on-one.
thing is what sets him apart from Lex Luthor. Like,
Absolutely.
Lex is a great villain, but
Absolutely.
he's not the kind of person who
He's not going toe to toe with Superman anytime soon.
or with magic, like Doctor Fate in their case, but he wouldn't be able to go toe to toe with Doctor Strange. Like Doctor Doom could totally do that, and it's
Absolutely.
totally in his wheelhouse.
And he'd give him a good run for his money, probably.
Yeah, and they've done some great stuff. Like I don't think I've ever read it, but there's a story where because Doctor Doom's mother was in hell for a long time.
I think I
in
recall
the older
this.
comics, and then him and Doctor Strange like teamed up to save her. I don't know how that story ended, but that's the sort of neat dynamic those two can have. They had it in Children's Crusade.
Yes.
It had children, but I kept thinking Children of the
Young
Atom, and I
Avengers.
was like, that doesn't. Yeah, the Young Avengers story, like he had that dynamic with a bunch of characters like Scarlet Witch, but I think they had a good moment together too.
Absolutely, yeah. Because they married in secret or something.
Yeah.
It was a little far fetched that bit, but it worked.
And then that kind of brings us. So let's talk now about like the type of movie we'd like to see.
We would
'Cause
like.
we're
to
pretty
see,
much
yeah.
on the same page, and I agree.
I think so.
The Fantastic Four work pretty well in the periphery. Like you're not
Absolutely.
you're not really on top of this right now, but Secret Wars and
Yes.
like whatever it's brand new and it's ongoing and stuff. But I would say like some of the main characters of that, and you've read the beginning of Time Runs Out and
Yep.
that sort of thing, so you know a little bit. But like Reed Richards, Doctor Doom, and then a bunch of other like non-fantastic, but two of them, and I would say the two biggest that come to mind for the stars of like Time Runs Out and Secret Wars would be Reed Richards and Doctor Doom, and it works well, and it jives against that whole thing about them trying to like usher the Fantastic Four out,
Right.
because all of the Fantastic Four members are pretty big in this story. Like so, I just went over a comic today, Secret Wars #5, and like Valeria is one of the main characters, and she's like being tasked by Doom to look for these people, and it's kind of a really interesting dynamic. For reasons, Reed isn't in the picture, so he's kind of like a father figure to
That's
her.
very interesting.
And like Sue Storm is also there, and also has a bit of a relationship with Victor because they don't really know Reed. And Johnny Storm and the Thing also have a very interesting story, but kind of as like they rejected Doom and didn't have the best life because of that necessarily. But that like and it works really well, and that's the sort of dynamic that the Fantastic Four seem to work best in. Same thing with the original Secret Wars. Another thing we covered on this channel, so a lot of our viewers will know about it.
Yep.
Doom plays a huge role in that. I don't know if you've read that at all.
I know the overview.
It's probably been a while, anyways. But and then Reed Richards and the other like everyone but Invisible Woman who was pregnant. Like at least in that case, she was pregnant, and it really wouldn't have worked in that story.
Right.
At the time, at least, and. Yeah, so like they would work well in that. So that would be one, I think, viable way if you're having Fantastic Four movies that worked is just if Marvel somehow got the rights back and they can just put the Avengers
start to work them in. Absolutely.
Or the X-Men if Fox really was brave.
Yeah, absolutely. But I have no confidence in Fox to do anything
they haven't
adequately.
They didn't do anything along the lines of like world building, which is probably for the best given how bad this movie is.
Absolutely. I just don't think they have anybody who has an idea of what the hell they're doing.
Yeah.
I feel like they hire writers and it's like, hey, read this book and write me something.
Yeah. And then like they gave the movie to that guy who made Chronicle and Little Else.
That movie was,
Yeah.
I like found footage movies, but
I don't think he was a good fit like to do this out of the blue. Like that wasn't a good transition from that to Fantastic Four.
Not at all. Two opposites.
He could do something really like kick-ass or like something kind of lower key like that.
Sure.
That'd be a good bridge from Chronicle. Like you need, and not kick-ass itself, but something like kind of like more probably an Image comic.
Right.
Probably something a little more low key that it like Fox isn't gonna have its claws.
Not a
on.
major summer. Well, what should be a major summer blockbuster.
Oh yeah. No, like this needed someone who would have clout like over the studio and be able to kind of have like a vision, and I think that's its biggest thing.
Absolutely
missing. So, yeah, but I'm not sure that Fox is gonna just let Marvel get their rights back.
I don't think so either. I think they're still delusional enough that they see dollar signs. They're gonna make money either way.
That's what they've said
clear,
publicly for sure. I've read yesterday that they could lose $60 million on this movie, and I still don't think.
Oh, let's hope.
Yeah, and that would be a big
It'd be a
difference.
good sign to
It's just-
send.
It'd be certainly the sort of thing that would make them reconsider and definitely drop the sequel, which is probably for the best.
Don't see this movie, otherwise they'll make a second.
Yeah, and that is true. But like, I don't think we really can go ahead and just abandon the idea of like Fox owning this franchise either, because I don't know, it wouldn't really be in their interest to do that, and even Sony never really did that. They made a deal.
They
with
made
Marvel.
a deal with Marvel, but they didn't give them Spider-Man.
No. So and then they have until 2022 before they have to like make another Fantastic Four movie or lose the rights. Yeah. So exactly.
Prepare
right?
for another Fantastic Four movie.
Pretty much. So that's just in the cards. So failing them doing a big crossover kind of thing, which would be cool. Like, I just don't see how they're gonna do it.
Well, I guess you kind of have Infinity Wars coming up.
Oh,
I guess will be a crossover.
I could totally see them doing it if they had the rights. It'd be great.
Oh, sorry, with the Fantastic Four, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I just don't see them like managing it, unless like they actually bring them into the X-Men, and that would kind of
deal
be
with
cool.
Fox.
They've done X4 before, and that's kind of interesting. That was like an Ultimate comic,
Right,
the
I
X-Men
remember that.
versus
I read
the
that.
Fantastic
Yeah.
Four. I like that. That kind of works. So they could do something along those lines. But other than that, what would you consider, or what would you think would make a good Fantastic Four movie?
The Fantastic Four movie I would want to see would not involve them getting launched into space on a shuttle. It needs to just say, okay, people can figure this out on their own, or
Right.
even just do. If you remember Spider-Man 2, the opening credits were kind of a summary of the first film. Everybody fucking knows it, but just in case, here's your quick little summary.
Yeah.
Got bit by a spider, there you go. They went into space, they have powers, do you really need to know anything else?
Right.
They're not happy about it. The end.
Yeah, and that's kind of the model like Marvel's adopting, but DC, Fox,
They're all
maybe even Spider-Man.
they're stubborn and far
Or
behind.
Sony, I should say, but Sony doing Spider-Man, like they tend to cling to origins, and like I don't know, I've never been that a big fan of origins. I think they get a little overvalued.
Absolutely.
They're important. They're super important for
sure.
explaining characters' motivations and all that stuff.
But when you already know the story,
Yeah.
everyone knows Spider-Man got bit by a spider. You don't need to beat me over the head with it.
Oh yeah,
There's only so many ways you can show me Uncle Ben getting killed.
absolutely. Same, and that's like that even goes to something that's good, anyways. Like I think that's why I like The Dark Knight over Batman.
Absolutely.
Begins.
Bam. Let's
Yeah.
go. We know who this guy is.
Yeah,
We know why he
there
does
you go.
this.
I think that's one of the movies that goes.
If you didn't see it, go watch the first one.
Yeah, or the like 1991 one. I think is that the year, the Tim Burton one.
Yeah, yeah.
Or the like Adam West
1990.
cartoons, or every Batman fiction ever. At
Pick up one
point
of
or
those
another.
10-page children's books.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah, I don't know how
I
many.
think
of
they
those-
just explained Batman's parents went away.
Yeah.
But you'll
Yeah,
get the
it's just- I
gist
don't know
of
how
it.
much they get into that, the origins in those books, but
Well, yeah, not
yeah.
an origin story. It's not the way to go in 2015.
Not at all. And even you go back to some of like the kids shows we watched, and all of them skip it. Like it's like
Absolutely.
I don't know if they ever did the origins of the X-Men like in those old 90 cartoons.
If the kids are smart enough to just pick up that these guys have superpowers,
Yeah. Like,
they're
you
mutants.
don't need
Okay,
to
good
explain
enough.
anything.
Exactly.
So I think that's a good start. And there's a ton of untapped villains too. They have the rights to the Skrulls. We don't need to use those. Like, so then Marvel can't, and they just ghosts.
Kree-Skrull War would be great.
That'd be a cool one. That'd be a good crossover one.
It'd be a great, yeah.
Even if they didn't have the Avengers, they could work with that.
Sure.
Somehow involve Marvel or the X-Men. The X-Men are always doing stuff with aliens.
They're always in
Normally.
space.
Shi'ar, nope. Like they've always owned those rights, and they've just never used them because they.
I don't think they have the talent though, like the
the
writers who
ambition.
can make,
Yeah.
make use of it. They don't have a guy like Joss Whedon who can, write an A+ level script that
Well, and I
that
think-
plot deserves.
I think like writers, finding a good writer isn't that hard, but a lot of these movies don't seem to spend any time on it. They'll just get someone who's easy and cheap,
Yeah.
and just be like, okay, it's good enough.
Or has
They'll spend
done something vaguely related to that in the last 14
spend
years.
like millions of dollars on like rewrites and effects instead of just like thousands early on with a good script, and then
Yep. That's all you need.
yeah,
Go from
so
there.
Marvel does a better job at that even.
Absolutely.
They actually, I don't know if you know this, they hire people to just write ideas for them. That's how like Guardians of the Galaxy came to be. Is they just were like, can you make this Robert Liefeld stuff like work? And like this chick wrote the script, and that
Sweet.
basically is the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Like it was, tinkered with. I assume,
Right.
The director had a lot of changes here and there, but that whole idea of like the prison and the Nova Corps, what they were depicted as, like that was all there. But like the outline, the parts that worked as much as the
Absolutely,
stuff that
yeah.
didn't.
No, I know what you mean.
So clearly, there's ways of doing that.
Oh yeah. I think a huge thing that they're missing out on is still Galactus, and not a giant purple angry cloud of gas.
Oh, okay.
Because that was just...
You didn't care for that? Or
I didn't know
what about Warren Ellis's Galactus, where it's like a swarm of ships?
Right. Yeah, I wasn't really...
No.
I applaud him for trying something new.
Oh, it was new.
I felt like that comic kind of built up to something that didn't deliver.
Yeah.
It was like a bad horror film.
Yeah. It would have been a cool idea, too, if they'd done it right.
Had they pulled it off, absolutely.
We killed 1/10 of you, and now you're going to run away. Like, we did it. Like, that was a weird ending. We should cover that sometime on the channel.
That was
By
strange.
we, I mean, me.
But I want to see a big purple and blue guy sitting in a chair who's really hungry. I'd love to see
him.
him.
Ship, even though that kind of defeats his own purpose.
He's got a shiny friend that is faster than him, apparently.
But he's kind of a nice guy for some reason.
Yeah, who sometimes is nice because he liked to read books or something back in the day. And
yeah, that could work. It's a shame they'll never really get to use their ties to the Inhumans because they're just owned by different companies now.
Don't sell your rights, kids.
Yeah, mom and dad can't get along, so it just doesn't work. Doom still needs to be depicted correctly in spite of having been in 3 of the 4. Oh no, he's in all 4. He's in all 4 Fantastic Four movies. He just doesn't do anything in Rise of Silver Surfer.
Hurts.
As opposed to all the other ones.
No, he like steals the
do
surfboard because the surfboard has all the powers.
Yeah, and I think he teams up with
Why
them.
would the surfboard have all the power?
And I really like the idea of them working together. That was like a cool idea that they didn't do anything with in that movie.
Right.
Like for them, if they did a new movie and it was just like, okay, we're gonna reboot, but we're just gonna ignore the fact that we are and just do like a pure Galactus movie or something where like Doctor Doom had to team up with them, that'd be awesome. Oh, it'd be so good. But like they're not going to, especially because now they're afraid of Galactus and Silver Surfer because they screwed it up once.
Oh, it was awful.
Yeah, but it would it's a good character. It would work. It all could work.
He's such
not
a
gonna
great
be done
villain.
though, just because they're worried.
Yeah.
That could be a thing. Would you make it a dark movie or a campy, lighthearted one? If you had all the control in the world.
I think if I had all the control in the world, I would make more of an adult, serious Fantastic Four film.
Okay.
That being said, I think you have to also approach it from a science fiction standpoint. You can't just look at it like a action comedy, like a lot of Marvel films seem to be these days.
Okay.
I think it would need to be a little brainier. I think it would need to take a bit of a different approach. It needs to be a little smarter, I think, than some of the Marvel films. But I think another thing, too, is that it needs to not just dwell on the things we see every time. The Thing is not happy about how he looks. We get that. But the plot can't just be about, him doing whatever it takes to get back to normal.
Yeah.
We need to see something other than Reed Richards just driving himself crazy, trying to turn them back into normal. You know, we need to...
And it needs,
we need to see a competent Fantastic Four team. These are the pros.
And there needs to be real chemistry between them too.
Absolutely. 2 of them are married. 2 of them are siblings. They're 2 are best friends.
It's supposed to be a family. It doesn't. They miss that a lot.
Absolutely.
I know they don't have any in the new movie, and we all know they don't have any in the older ones. And that's one of their biggest mistakes. And then the other thing is, and by the way, having a black actor for Human Torch, that's okay. They don't have to be that's so moot relative to everything else. But he needs to have a personality, which I hear he doesn't have. And then when you say dark,
the one requirement of an actor.
Yeah, when you say dark and serious, that doesn't mean the Thing has to be mopey and dark. I hear he's
not.
Humorless.
But he can beat guys up and not just shout its clobber in time and smack his hands together and hit them with a sonic wave. Let's this is a big guy made of rocks. Let's break some stuff.
Sure, but then you can't just go the other way too. Like he needs to have like I think a big part of his character is that he is making quips and such.
Absolutely, he's got to have one.
I think they lost that, and then when they finally do its clobbering time in the new movie, it falls flat because there's nothing.
And I hate when they just save it for the end. You know what I mean? Like
like with Hulk smash and
like we know he's.
And that movie was a lot better than anything we're talking about here, but that was a bit disappointing. And then like in the Avengers, the Hulk talks all the time, and it's awesome. Like
it is.
He's got a lot of great lines.
What would you think of a Fantastic Four television show or Netflix series instead of a film?
That'd be good, but you know what would be great? The best thing they would do that they never ever do would be to animate it, because then you wouldn't have to worry about budget.
I was just thinking
it would always look good. It would always be great. An adult-oriented one would be great, but even like one would be okay.
What would you think of a Doctor Who-esque Fantastic Four series?
The only downside is
I can see that working.
Such
it's
a budget.
Campiness.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Oh, you could animate it.
Oh, okay.
Like if it's animated, you know what I mean? There covers your budget.
Yeah.
I think that would have enough campy scienciness. You know what I mean?
And there's a lot of studios that would kick ass with it too. You
Absolutely.
have Last Airbender. Those guys did a great job. Like Rick and Morty does high concept adult science fiction, and it's looks amazing, even though like it took some getting used to. Like the characters themselves aren't animated that well.
Okay.
But the scenery and so they'll do something like they have like a giant computer simulation, and it's of the hometown, and part of it like drops off into like this crystallized abyss where like the simulation ends, and that goes into the spaceship that is holding the simulation. And the spaceship itself is like the size of a moon, and it looks really good. And it's a really well animated show and stuff. And they're just on TV. They're on Adult Swim actually, and they look fantastic. So there's lots of ways of doing it for sure. That'd be great actually. I don't see why Fox would ever do something like that. They don't necessarily own those rights either. Marvel actually might still own those rights to TV.
Although, right.
When it comes to like live action and like something like Netflix, that would be really ambiguous.
Yeah, it sucks. The law kills these things.
Yeah. But then animated, that might change it, and then that'd be great because then they could do whatever they wanted, right? Like, we own all the characters. We can do whatever we please.
A 6-part Galactus series.
Yeah, and I have I don't subscribe to the pedigree of movies over something like that. Daredevil's great. It's so much better than that movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And it works better, too, because you can pace the story. You can establish who he is.
Especially for the Fantastic Four. That would make it. That's where you could actually get to the kids, for example. And they're such a big part of the Fantastic Four.
Let's have part of the story and explain who Franklin is. You know what I mean? Let's have an episode where we just go into Johnny, and it's not just head Johnny driving into things.
Now, on that note, you've read Hickman stuff, right? Alan Hickman, Death of Human Torch, when they come back, and that big ending with like Galactus and all that stuff. Is that the sort of tone you'd aim for, or what do you think?
I don't know that I'd kill Johnny Storm.
Yeah, you don't have to do that. But I'm talking about the tone, like you were talking about something a little more adult.
I like the adult darker, and I think that it can be refreshing, but I also like this idea you have of, you know what I mean, all ages almost of Fantastic Four that I think would work well as well. So, which is a good transition. Either way you could do.
Yeah, and I'll go into my view of what I think a good movie would be. I don't think my idea would be successful. I actually think yours probably would work a little better for the modern age. But what I'd love to see them do with Fantastic Four is to make it like a Star Trek movie. And like by Star Trek movie, I don't mean J.J. Abrams. I don't mean Wrath of Khan or like the First Contact, the one with the Borg. I mean Star Trek 4, where they like go back in time to save a bunch of whales, and it's like funny.
The important stuff.
Yeah, but like there's like a hint of science, but it's really just to facilitate a fun idea, and the entire thing is just a series of running jokes about like cultural anachronisms. So because they're out of time,
right?
So you have Chekhov like a Russian at the height of the Cold War, like in San Francisco, asking for nuclear vessels and.
Your nuclear vessels.
Yeah, it's not going to change your life watching it, but it would be a lot of fun.
It could.
And that's the sort of like, and it doesn't have to be that movie exactly. That's the tone I'd go for. And then you could go into time travel. It doesn't have to be about time travel, but like, you could get into space adventures and that sort of thing.
You have so much with the Fantastic Four. You could go into the macro, micro, whatever they call it, universe. Like,
microverse. Yeah. And I was wondering if that was
Dimension X, the negative zone, whatever you want.
The big one for sure.
Dimension X is Ninja Turtles.
Oh, okay.
I just realized that.
That's funny.
It's where Krang lives.
Oh, okay. Of course. Yeah, I don't know. I was wondering if they would get into the microverse with Ant-Man actually, because I don't know who owns that. I honestly have no idea. I don't know who it's mostly associated with. Yeah. I'm not sure anyone does. But there's a ton of stuff they could do with the Fantastic Four in any direction for sure.
Absolutely.
I think that's what bugs me the most. I don't know if they released like a campy Fantastic Four, it would really sell that well. Yeah. I don't think it would in this day and age. Although if it would have a chance now compared to like 10 years ago when we were all like in the Nolan Batman years, and it like that was the name of the day, and it worked. That movie worked, but you started getting stuff like Man of Steel, and that still just doesn't work. Yeah,
that was.
And I think we can both agree that's not the direction for Fantastic Four. Like when you say more adult stuff, I know you don't mean like dark for the sake of dark, cities falling apart, because that's just not them. Like they wouldn't be able to recover from that low in terms of like a low emotional point.
They are happy-go-lucky, it seems.
Yeah, and that's the tone they need to take, because like you wouldn't be able to get them to pull you out of it. They're not.
You would still need a very real though. Doctor Doom is threatening this. Galactus is gonna eat us. Yeah. You know.
But there's ways of doing that they don't do normally. Like they'll do these big, epic things, and I think the threat needs to be personal because it's a family.
Sure.
Like so.
But just don't kidnap one of the kids and hold them hostage.
No, although that might be what would be necessary, or even maybe just them threatened in a fight, one of them, any one of them, or something like that. I don't know exactly how you go about like raising the stakes, or you know what? Usually, what it should be is like they can't escape from place being like the negative zone. Like you can't let an Annihilus get out. Or there's a great, I don't know if you read it, one of the Ultimate Fantastic Four stories, there's like this thing that crawls out from the dimension and it possesses Doctor Doom, and he's like, I can't, like this thing can't get out, we'll all die if we do, and he like willingly goes through a portal to save the world.
I think I remember this vaguely.
Stuff like that might be a good way to raise the stakes, where it's just like, this will kill everyone.
Sure.
And you don't even need to have like this big epic scale. And you know, the Fantastic Four actually could do big and epic if they're fighting like a giant mole monster, or just like that giant monster they fought in Astonishing X-Men, like something big like that. Throw that at them that sort of thing, and that'd be great. But,
Save New York.
Oh yeah, it'd be perfect.
But yeah, the way they're going now is not the way to go.
No. Now, yeah, and that's the problem. Like and that will just ultimately confirm all these predictions, I guess you could call them, that spawned me to make this video about that you can't make a Fantastic Four movie. But that's entirely circumstantial. No. Like if the rights belong to Marvel,
give the rights to Marvel, and I bet we'll see a great Fantastic Four movie.
Yeah, or even just a good movie with them in it.
Sure.
The Civil War.
Sure.
They actually were split in the Civil War, weren't they?
They were, because remember Sue left Reed, and it was a whole thing because Reed went all fascist.
That's pretty good. And
Johnny was dead at the time, maybe.
I think so. No, he got knocked out at the beginning of the story.
Yes, at the club. Yeah. Right, that
was a big moment. Like they were really ingrained in that story, and in a good way. Like because it felt like the family was breaking up for a reason they believed in. It wasn't like forced.
Yeah.
As some of the Civil War stuff kind of was. That one was one of the better ones because it was like part of the core series. Even I remember that.
Yes.
And same thing with this new stuff. Like they're big players in this Secret Wars story. And it drives a lot of the action, and in a good way. Like, and it's fantastic because of that, or not even just because of their presence. Like, it's good, and they're in it, and so like it clearly can work, but I just don't see it happening, and that's a shame because they're fun, and neither of us are gonna like go out and claim like we're the biggest Fantastic Four fans.
No,
we're both, and Joey's like that too. Like we're all X-Men fans here first, probably, and then Marvel, and then DC. The Fantastic Four has always just kind of been a periphery of Marvel to me. working best in crossovers, like you kind of said,
Mm-hmm.
and occasionally having a good story of their own, but it's weird. Okay, so obvious edit aside, we got to take a quick break, but my point is just like it sucks that we can't get a good Fantastic Four movie. I think the potential is there. I think we've talked about a lot of different ways they could go about it, be it crossover or something a little more carefully constructed is I think the best way to summarize your idea, or just something of a different like tone and style from the other superheroes, which is kind of what I was thinking. But in any case, like I still believe it's doable. It's just not realistic in any point in our near future.
No.
Especially when they can just fart out like a really cheap movie every 5 or 6 years until it's
absolutely and renew their contract.
Yeah, completely and utterly unprofitable. Like, but it can go a long time before we get to that level.
Fox has some other properties to support it.
Yeah, especially the X-Men and stuff. So that's about it. Do you have anything else to add, or?
That's about it. Let's hope that we see a good Fantastic Four movie at some point in our lifetime.
And really, like that's all it takes is just the coincidence of a good project. So sometimes just you get the right director or someone with the vision in the right spot, and just enough people in like the executive level to not care, and things work out. In some ways, I think that's how Iron Man happened, which launched the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's just it was good by accident, and Marvel realized they could do something with this. So it could happen, but. And maybe they just need to listen to us. They just need famous
we're available. We'll
studio executives to watch this like B-grade YouTube video and get some ideas. But
absolutely, we'll write it for you.
So it's unanimous.
We'll do it for a bargain too.
That's what we've come to the conclusion is that we should make this.
Yes.
And we would do a better job, probably. Honestly, if we were given creative control and like half the budget of the new Fantastic Four movie, I think we could put something together.
I think we could probably handle it. I think the only thing we would lack would be special effects. I would have maybe possible Stickman Galactus.
Well, with half the budget, I think we could do that.
Absolutely.
You just have to be selective and not like pay out your ass for celebrities.
Absolutely.
You know, it's not even.
Hey, what a novel concept.
Yeah, it would probably be better, and that's sad to say almost, but I think it's true. Like,
it is, absolutely.
I'm really not that confident. Like we've never made a movie before, but we just like have the basic sense of a vision.
We've read the Fantastic Four prior to 30 days before getting the job.
So we'd have an idea of what we'd want to see, and that's all they need. They need to just hire somebody like that. That's who like Joss Whedon is, or James Gunn.
Hire a comic book fan.
Yeah, or someone who appreciates it. I don't think James Gunn is like the biggest comic book fan, but he understands the craft and the fun behind it. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. It's the first time we've done a little discussion like this. It was kind of fun. It's a little different, but it's just a good filler because
hopefully you like it.
It's been busy for me in the last couple weeks, so I've gotta fill some holes in the schedule. But thanks for appearing, Dylan.
No problem.
I'm sure everyone.
Thanks for having me.
Hear all your stuff about the Fantastic Four, and yeah, that's about as close to a movie review as we're gonna get for this movie, guys. But honestly, I think that's more
in your best interest.
Oh yeah, and it's more interesting than just hearing what you'll hear on any other like movie review channel, which is it stinks. It stinks, guys. It's really bad. Don't see it.
Here's a movie review from two guys that didn't see the movie.
As we were joking about off camera earlier, like we haven't seen this movie, and we're very proudly like telling you not to watch it either because
see it.
It's just not worth our time. It's not worth your time. There's no way that many critics and people whose opinions I trust are wrong. And it didn't even look that good to begin with, so it's a shame. But
there are no copies of the Fantastic Four on the Comic Island.
Oh yeah. And do you want to do the signing off phrase? You probably have heard it through periphery.
And don't forget to like, subscribe, and keep reading comics.
Nice. That was perfect.